Ready to take things to a new level? This is Level On Up with Sadia.
Welcome, Cav from Eskimo Joe. Thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat, and congrats on the new single, The First Time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Do you want to break it down for us? It's been out for a couple of weeks now, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've just started playing it live as well, which is really cool because leading up to writing and recording the song, we put out a couple of songs, during the whole COVID times. But it was weird because we were writing and recording songs after not really playing as much live as a band for a while, and also not being in front of people, because you get that tangible feeling when you're playing to a live crowd. So at the end of last year, we played all these big, amazing festivals. And then at the end of that, we kind of bottled that, and that energy, and then went into the studio at my little space in Freo and wrote and recorded The First Time, which is this kind of song about nostalgia and, the first time, you fell in love or smoked a cigarette, and how we kind of look back at these things with a much more romantic headspace than probably how they actually were. So now we've put the song out, and we've been playing it live in front of people after going through that experience, and it's so much fun. It's like we've been playing these shows with Live and Incubus and Birds of Tokyo, so they're these big kind of festival-y shows, and it's just been, heaps of fun.
Do you think the single's a bit of a celebration of Eskimo Joe itself too? Because you boys have been rocking around for quite a few years now.
Yeah, well, yes, we started in 1997, so if you do the maths there, we're kind of getting into almost 30 years of being a band, which is pretty amazing. And so I think, we've been through different eras where, you take yourself too seriously or not seriously enough, but this song, definitely, we just kind of embraced who we are as a band and just, made a song that probably would sit pretty comfortably on an album like Black Fingernails Red Wine. Which
is, to date, one of my favourite albums of all time. From the Sea, did that just celebrate 20 years as well?
Yeah, it did. So the song itself came out in March, I think it was, of 2004. And then I think the album, would have come out probably like around about July. This July will be the 20th anniversary of the album. And so, we've got a few little special tricks up our sleeves that we've been saving up, which is going to be, that we'll kind of put out to celebrate it, which will be fun.
Well, you've got some great tricks up your sleeve because the National Acoustic Theatre Tour, wow, some great Aussie names on that list as well.
Yeah, so we're picking up a few friends along the way as we go. So we've got Josh Pike joining us for a show, and Augie March jumping on for a couple of shows, and Dan Sultan doing a whole bunch of shows with us. So that'll be really fun, and also just a really great way for us to kind of get into. There's all these beautiful theatres all over Australia, and country towns and all kinds of places, and we'll just be rocking up, the three of us, kind of playing the songs stripped back and acoustic, and giving people a bit more of an intimate experience, as opposed to people who would have seen us play at festival shows where we jump around and in tight jeans. This will be a bit more of a chilled out.
It's going to be interesting playing those the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the good thing about, say, The First Time is it's always nice when you play a song that sounds pretty good on an acoustic guitar as well as with a big rock and roll band. And that's the good thing about that song, is it translates pretty well. So some songs don't really work as acoustic songs, but thankfully most of our songs were written, on an acoustic guitar, so they translate pretty well.
And while we're talking about tours and festivals, you just had the Lookout tour with the likes of Birds of Tokyo, Super Jesus. How did that all go?
Really good. Yeah, we're kind of, I'm not sure when this podcast goes to air, but we're kind of halfway through it at the moment. So we've just done Queensland, and that was as sticky and sweaty as you could possibly imagine. And everyone walked off stage feeling like they were going to die. But then the second show, we kind of paced ourselves a bit more, but the crowds have been amazing. And then, this weekend we'll be playing Mornington Peninsula, which will be a bit better in the weather department, so we can jump around a bit more on stage.
So is your VIP section better than the Birds of Tokyo's last one? I saw you posted up a sneak peek of where they were.
Well, that was Stu being a bit cheeky. It's all very luxurious. Don't worry.
No, it is great. And fast forwarding back to the National Acoustic Theatre Tour, when's that all kick off?
So once we finish this run of shows, these big rock and roll shows in the end of April, then we'll jump into the jam room, rehearse up some songs, and then I think end of April in Ballarat is the first show.
And all the states, nobody's missing out?
Some people are missing out. Unfortunately, it's a show. We're not promoting it, so the people who've put it together have just given us a bunch of dates, but we're not going to South Australia or Tasmania or Northern Territory, unfortunately.
You'll just have to make another excuse to come to South Australia.
I 100% agree. I wish we were coming through. We've had lots of people, very sadly, on the socials, like begging us to come, and unfortunately, it's not our decision, but we'll definitely be back to South Australia soon.
And it is a bit of a juggle because you've got solo projects as well. You've got families. Like, how do you boys coordinate it? It must be a bit of a job in itself.
Well, luckily we've got very understanding partners who are very helpful with these things as well. But yeah, there's all kinds of projects going on, and getting that work-life balance, I think for anyone doing whatever they do in life is pretty difficult. But this will be a big year of touring for us because obviously I do solo stuff outside, and I also work on recording other people's records and helping people write songs. So I'll do all that stuff in between. But we're kind of weekend warriors for the whole year. We're kind of living the FIFO life.
And I guess keen to get back on the road and tour because, there was a few years where you couldn't. I guess you're making up for it now.
Absolutely. I think, all the bands that we come across are all in the same headspace, which is that, after going through those couple of years of not doing shows or having to cancel shows or, shows being postponed, we just get on stage in front of people, and it's just such a feeling of gratitude because, there was a moment where we felt like it wasn't going to happen again, or was it ever going to happen again? Are people going to have that confidence to go back out to shows again? And I think it has picked up again, but, it's with big shows like Splendour in the Grass, struggling to set, and Groove of the Moose, struggling to sell the tickets that they once did. There's definitely been a shift in how people want to go to shows. And I think what we've taken away from this is that people want you to travel to them a bit more. Like lots of our fans are living out in the suburbs, with families and stuff these days. And so when we do a show that tours to them, we see lots of people buy tickets and rock up. And so, maybe the day of the travelling festival, where people would have to buy a plane ticket, a hotel room and all those things are not quite as popular as they once were. But we certainly really appreciate every time we get on stage and people turn up. It's just, it means the world to us.
And the fans would have a big range of age too. That would be quite exciting.
Absolutely. We've noticed that massively, and especially when we started to do shows again post-COVID, and we did these we did a big double album tour where we played Black Fingernails and the Songs of the City from start to finish. We had people in the front row who were like 20 years old who, were probably, 5 years old getting pushed around the supermarket, when Black Fingernails came out. And then we've got people in their 70s and 80s who are like older fans then who are still coming to see us. So we've got this huge range of people coming to shows now, which is really interesting.
It must be a good feeling too to know that you are reaching so many different people with your music, and it means so much to different people as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because being in a band for a good number of years, we've seen a kind of a rise and fall of people being interested in what we're doing, and at the moment it feels like a real renaissance that people are really interested in what we're doing, and we can see that by putting out a new song and the radio stations are playing it, people are coming along to shows. But when we took a break, in around about 2013, that felt like a good time to step away for a bit. There was other bands coming up. We didn't really feel like, it was the right time for us to be touring like we were touring. And so we kind of all stepped away and did some other projects. And that felt like the right thing to do because I felt like the band were kind of on a downwards, trend at that point in time. But then it's kind of come back up again. So the really interesting thing about, back to your question, about people still rocking up and seeing us play these days is, it's gone through eras, where the band have been really popular, then not as popular, and now we're going into an era where people seem to be really kind of we're almost heading to, I hate to say it, the heritage band land. You know, where, we're not quite there yet, but yeah, where we've been part of the scenery for such a long time that, you know, we're not popular or unpopular. We're just this band who exists and occupies this space, if that makes sense.
Well, what advice would you have for a kid these days picking up a guitar? Because music has evolved and changed so much, particularly in the last couple of years. There's not as many kids picking up the drum kits or the guitars and having a crack.
Well, I think, again, you'll see that come in, you know, trends. You know, sometimes, you know, when we first started in Eskimo Joe, it was all about being a three-piece. You know, you never have a keyboard player in your band. So that's how we started. It was Joel on the drums, me on the bass singing, and Stu on the guitar. And we did that for a while until, you know, the music we were listening to changed, and we were like, oh, we want some keyboards in here. So we had a keyboard player and then a second guitarist, and then Joel wanted to play guitar because he played guitar on the record, so we got someone else playing drums. It changed based on the music that we were listening to and what was trending at the time. And I think you'll see that with kids picking up guitars. And as far as advice goes, I mean, really my advice is always about the fundamentals, and which is, you know, practice the hell out of your instrument for one thing, whatever that may be, whether you're a DJ producer or you're a singer-songwriter guitarist. And then really take the time in learning your craft. You know, it's pretty easy in the world of computers these days to, just because you can record something and it's the length of a song, that doesn't particularly make a great song. A great song is where you sit there and you go over every chord and you keep going over and over it again until you can hit it with a hammer and it still sounds like a pretty good song. You know, the story of all of our songwriting, it's like, you know, I've got my phone here and it's filled with a million voice, little memos. And sometimes I go back and I name them because I'm like, oh, well, what the hell was this? And there might be some good ideas on there that I want to use for later. But quite often it's 20,000 iterations of the same song. So the song the first time, it didn't just come out as a song that sounded like that. You know, there was one version of a verse and I'm like, oh, I don't really like that, but I'm going to keep that one little bit there. And then another version of the verse happened. And then I was like, oh, that sounds a bit like that song. So I'm going to change the melody there. And then it just kept evolving and changing. So as far as advice goes, it's like, you know, being good at what you do is about the hours that you put in. So if you want to write great songs, which I think is the most important thing that a band or an artist can do, then, you know, take the time, really work hard at it. Don't think just because you've recorded it on a recording program that you've got a song. You've got a bit of music, but to write a great song means you've got to put in a whole lot of work and you've got to love it. Otherwise, you know, it's going to not be much fun.
If we were to break into the Eskies vault of songs, how many would we find in there?
Well, the songs that we've actually released, oh God, I don't know. But we also we get into, when we write a record, or we, you know, even with this song the first time, we kind of mucked around with a few ideas, like kind of 3-chord written songs, which were okay until we cracked into the first time. We're like, oh, this is great. Yeah, let's work on this idea. And then, like I said, there was different versions of it. So, you know, by the time when we're probably not a band who are going to jump into the studio and make an album again soon. We'll probably put out 1 or 2 songs a year every year, and that works for us at the moment. But when we're making records, generally, you know, you have 12 songs that go on a record, and there's always about, you know, 18 to 20 kind of complete songs that don't get used. Sometimes they end up as B-sides. Sometimes they get recycled and turned into other songs. But as far as the vault goes, I have no idea.
Probably thousands, wouldn't there?
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, if you've got a couple of hundred memos on your phone.
Yeah, well, those, again, a memo is not a song. There's lots and lots of ideas, but as far as complete songs go, I'm not sure.
Well, thank you so much for having a chat with me, Cav. A pleasure as always. But I do have one last question. What's it like listening to your new single for the first time versus your first single?
It's always pretty exciting. I think when we first started, me and Joel were talking about it, that we just wanted, our benchmark was pretty low. We just wanted to be driving in a car with a girl and come on the radio. and I think we achieved that. But now it's kind of, I don't know, it's still really exciting every time you hear your music, you know, next to other people's music. It feels like just always feels like an honor. You know, there's probably been moments in our lives where we've taken it for granted, you know, where we've had a lot of success and we've just been working at the next thing and been obsessed by that. But it's still, I think now more than ever, we appreciate the legacy of Eskimo Joe. We're really happy for Eskimo Joe to be what it is. Like, we have other projects we do, and we get to satisfy those creative urges doing those other things outside. So when we come together, we do Eskimo Joe and we hear that song on the radio, you know, it's like the first time, you know, you just get that buzz.
Well, as an Esky fan, thank you so much. And even if you only release 1 or 2 songs a year, I'm all for it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for the support. I love it.